Good evening, and welcome to The Big Question. Tonight we're discussing a topic that affects almost everyone, our cars. The world is changing, and many people are asking, should all cars be electric? It's a simple question, with a very complex answer full of strong opinions on both sides. To help us understand the different sides of this argument, we have two guests with us tonight. Leo is a tech journalist who believes electric cars are the future. Welcome, Leo. And Maria is an experienced car mechanic who sees the daily challenges drivers face. Welcome, Maria. Let's start with your opening thoughts. Leo, would you like to begin?
Thank you, Sarah. Yes, I would. I believe the future is electric, and for a very simple reason. It's better for everyone. The biggest and most immediate benefit is for our environment. We all know that traditional petrol and diesel cars produce harmful emissions. These gases pollute our air, contribute to climate change, and cause serious health problems, especially in our cities. Electric vehicles, or EVs, have zero tailpipe emissions. This means nothing harmful comes out of the car as it drives. Imagine our cities with cleaner air, where children can breathe more easily. Imagine quieter streets, without the constant noise of engines. This is not a dream. It's a reality that's possible with EVs. But it's not just about the environment. Driving an EV is also a much better experience. They're incredibly quiet and smooth. The acceleration is instant and very responsive, which makes them fun to drive. The technology inside them is amazing. They're like computers on wheels, always connected and improving. Now, I know people worry about the price, and I understand that. Today, the initial purchase price can be higher than a similar petrol car, but we have to look at the total cost of owning the car. The prices are falling every year as technology gets better and production increases, and the costs to run them are much, much lower. Electricity is significantly cheaper than petrol or diesel. EVs also need a lot less maintenance. There are no oil changes, no spark plugs to replace, and the brakes last longer. This saves owners a lot of money over time. Switching to electric cars is a necessary step forward. It's an investment in a cleaner, healthier, and more modern world for all of us. We cannot continue to rely on old, dirty technology that's actively damaging our planet. It's time for us to be brave and embrace the future.
Thank you, Sarah. Leo presents a very nice picture of the future. But I believe that for most people right now, it's not realistic. I work with car owners every day, and I see their real-world problems. The biggest problem, by far, is the cost. Leo says prices are falling, but a new electric car is still a luxury item. An average family often cannot afford to spend 30, 40, or 50,000 euros on a new car. They rely on the second-hand market, buying cars that are a few years old. And the second-hand market for EVs is still very small and uncertain. Then, there's the huge practical problem of charging. Leo says you can charge at home, and that's wonderful if you have a private driveway or a garage. But what about the millions of people who live in apartments? What about people who live in houses with no private parking, who have to park on the street? Where do they charge their car every night? They cannot run a long cable from the 5th floor of their building down to the street. It's not safe or practical. Public charging stations are not on every corner like petrol stations are. And it can take hours to fully charge a car. This is not convenient for people with busy lives. It's not like a 5-minute stop to fill up with petrol. We also need to ask a very important question. Are electric cars truly green? The batteries are a very big problem. They use rare materials like lithium and cobalt. The mining for these materials is very destructive to the environment in other countries. And what happens to the battery when it dies after 8 or 10 years? It's extremely expensive to replace. It can cost thousands and thousands of euros, sometimes more than the car is worth. So, while I agree that we need to think about the environment, I don't think forcing everyone to buy an electric car is the right answer. There are too many practical and financial problems that we need to solve first, before we make such a big change.
Thank you both for those clear, opening statements. You've both raised important points. Maria, you mentioned the major challenge of charging infrastructure. Leo, many people share this concern. They see the convenience of petrol stations everywhere. Is it really possible to build enough chargers for everyone? Everywhere? Especially for those in apartments?
It's a challenge, I will not deny that, but it's not an impossible one. We need to think about it differently. Most car journeys are short, just going to work or to the supermarket. Most people drive less than 50 kilometers a day. You don't need a full battery every single day. So the idea that everyone needs to charge for hours every night is not quite correct. For people in apartments, we're seeing new solutions. Companies are installing chargers in workplace car parks, so you can charge while you work. Supermarkets are adding chargers, so you can add some range while you shop. We're also seeing chargers being built into street lamps in some cities. Governments and private companies are already investing billions of euros in this. It's a huge project, but it's happening. We need to see this as a national infrastructure project, just like when we built the motorways or installed the internet in every home. It requires investment, yes, but it creates new jobs in installation and maintenance, and it prepares our country for the future.
And investment is easy to talk about, but I work with real people who face these problems today, not in some future that might exist. I have customers who live in large apartment blocks. They tell me there's nowhere for them to charge. Their employer doesn't have chargers, and the local supermarket has 2 chargers for 1,000 customers. And what about the cost of using these public chargers? They're often much more expensive than charging at home. Sometimes, the cost is almost the same as petrol. So the argument that it's always cheaper to run an EV is not true for people who must use the public network. And Leo mentions fast chargers. But even a quote-quote fast charger is not as fast as filling a car with petrol. If you're on a long journey, you have to stop for 30 or 40 minutes. What happens during busy holiday periods? Imagine hundreds of cars all waiting for a charger. The queues will be huge, and people will get very frustrated. The system we have for petrol is reliable, and it works for everyone. The charging system is not ready for everyone.
I understand the concern about holiday travel, Maria, but this is also changing. Battery technology is improving. Newer EVs already have a range of over 500 or 600 kilometers. Most people do not need to stop on a typical long journey. And when they do, the charging speeds are increasing dramatically. Soon, you might be able to get 200 kilometers of range in just 10 to 15 minutes. This is similar to a stop for coffee and a short break, which many people do anyway. We just need to adjust our habits, slightly.
But you're talking about newer EVs, and soon, these are the most expensive models. We have to make rules for the cars people drive now, and the cars they can afford to buy tomorrow. Not everyone can buy the latest, most expensive model with the biggest battery. We're creating a system that works for the rich, but not for the average person.
Let's move to the second major point that Maria made. The idea that EVs might not be as green as they seem because of the batteries. Leo, this is a common criticism. How do you respond to the environmental and ethical problems of producing and disposing of EV batteries?
That's a fair and important question. It's true that producing an EV, and especially its battery, creates carbon emissions. This is called the embedded carbon. However, numerous scientific studies have looked at the entire life of a car, from production to driving to recycling. They compare EVs and petrol cars. The conclusion is clear. Over its lifetime, an EV has a much lower total carbon footprint than a petrol car. The pollution from a petrol car happens every single day for its whole life. With an EV, most of the environmental impact is at the start, in production. After just 1 or 2 years of driving, the EV has paid back its production emissions and becomes cleaner than the petrol alternative. And it gets cleaner every year after that. Also, as our electricity becomes greener, from solar panels and wind turbines, the electricity we use to charge our cars becomes cleaner too. This makes driving an EV even better for the environment. Regarding the materials like lithium and cobalt, the industry is working hard on this. Car manufacturers are reducing the amount of cobalt in new batteries, and some are making cobalt-free batteries. And the science of battery recycling is improving incredibly fast. Soon, we'll be able to reuse more than 95% of the valuable materials from old batteries to make new ones. This creates a circular economy.
The word soon is a key word that Leo uses a lot, but we have to deal with the problems of today. Right now, large-scale battery recycling is not very common, and it's very expensive. Where do these old batteries go today? Many of them are just stored in containers. And the high cost of a replacement battery is a real, serious problem for the consumer. People buy a used car because it's cheaper. But who will buy a used EV that's 8 years old when they know it might need a new battery that costs more than the car is worth? It's a huge financial risk. This creates a big problem for the second-hand car market, which is the market that most ordinary people depend on. We need a solution that works for everyone, not just for people who can afford to buy a new car every few years, and not worry about the cost of a new battery.
But Maria, the fear about batteries dying is often bigger than the reality. Most manufacturers guarantee their batteries for 8 years or more, and studies of older EVs show that the batteries are lasting much longer than people expected. They lose a little capacity over time, but they still work perfectly well for normal driving. Also, an old battery from a car can have a second life. It can be used to store solar energy for a house, for example. It's still a very valuable object.
That's a nice idea, but it does not help the person who needs a car to get to work and is facing a bill for 10,000 euros for a new battery. It's not a practical solution for them.
I want to bring in another topic. If we all switch to electric cars, what does this mean for our national electricity grid? Can the system handle the extra demand if millions of cars are plugging in at the same time? Leo?
That's another excellent question. It's a common concern that the grid will be overloaded. But the reality is more complex and manageable. Most people will charge their cars overnight, when demand for electricity is very low. Factories are closed, and people are sleeping. So EVs can use this extra capacity that already exists in the system. They can help to balance the grid. Even better, we're developing smart charging technology. This means the car can communicate with the grid. The car will automatically charge when electricity is cheapest and cleanest. For example, when the wind is blowing strongly at night. In the future, with vehicle-to-grid technology, your car could even sell power back to the grid during peak hours and earn you money. Your car becomes part of the energy solution.
This sounds like science fiction to me. This requires every car and every home to have very advanced, expensive technology. We're not there yet. My concern is more basic. To charge millions of cars, we need to produce much more electricity. Where will this extra electricity come from? If it comes from burning more gas or coal, then we're not really solving the pollution problem. We're just moving the pollution from the car's exhaust pipe to the power station. We need a huge increase in renewable energy, wind, solar, nuclear, to make sure that electric cars are truly clean. Building this takes a lot of time and money. And what about the impact on jobs? I'm a mechanic. My job is to fix engines, exhaust systems, and gearboxes. Electric cars have very few of these parts. Many small, independent garages like mine could go out of business. Thousands of mechanics will need to retrain or find new jobs.
I agree that we must increase our renewable energy production. That's essential for many reasons, not just for electric cars. But even if some electricity comes from fossil fuels, an EV is still more efficient. A large, modern power station is much cleaner and more efficient at producing energy than a small, old petrol engine in a car. Regarding jobs, it's true that some jobs will change. This happens with every major technological shift. When the car was invented, people who made things for horses lost their jobs. But the car industry created millions of new jobs. The transition to EVs will do the same. We'll need people to build and maintain charging stations, to manufacture batteries, to write the software for the cars. It's a different set of skills, and we must invest in training for mechanics like Maria to help them become experts in this new technology. It's an opportunity, not just a threat.
It's an opportunity for big companies, perhaps. For a small business owner, it's a huge cost to buy all the new equipment and pay for all the training needed to service high-voltage electric cars. Many cannot afford it.
We're nearing the end of our discussion. It's time for your closing statements. Leo, could you please give us your final thoughts on why all cars should be electric?
Certainly. The change to electric cars is not just about technology. It's about the kind of world we want to live in. We have a historic opportunity to make our towns and cities cleaner, quieter, and healthier places for our children and grandchildren. Yes, there are challenges like cost and charging infrastructure, but every big change in history has had challenges. We did not stop building railways because it was difficult. With new ideas, investment, and a positive attitude, we can solve these problems. Choosing electric is about being optimistic and building a better, more sustainable future for the next generation. We should not wait.
Thank you, Leo. And now, Maria, your closing statement.
Electric cars are an interesting technology, and I'm sure they'll be part of the solution for our future transport needs. But they're not the only solution. It's a mistake to believe that one single technology can fix a complex problem, like climate change and pollution. We need to be more practical and realistic. We need to support a range of different options. This includes more efficient hybrid cars, developing clean synthetic fuels, and, most importantly, investing in excellent public transport and safe cycle routes, so people can choose not to use a car at all. We must not force people into a decision that's too expensive and not practical for their daily lives. A slower, more careful change is better than a fast change that leaves many people behind.
Thank you, Leo, and thank you, Maria, for a very clear and interesting debate tonight. You've shown that this is a complex issue with strong arguments on both sides. From the exciting vision of a clean future to the practical, real-world problems of today, you've certainly given us all a lot to think about. Thank you for watching The Big Question.